Well, that was a very entertaining all-star race, folks. Probably one of the best that we've had in quite some time. Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. The All-Star Race, a race where there are no points on the line. It's about shining in front of your fans, having fun, and most importantly, winning $1 million. The All-Star Race this weekend took place in North Wilkesboro Speedway, the small .625 mile track that we returned to 2 years ago in 2023 and have just continued to bring back the fun and the joy and the legacy that this racetrack left us, that we had from the days that NASCAR got started in old grassroots racing. And this weekend had perhaps the best racing at this track we've had since the return to this facility, with some great side-by-side action, a lot of lead changes, some differing strategies at the end of the race, but only one driver could emerge victorious for $1 million, and he's already got 3 wins this season. Let's talk about all that happened in last night's All-Star event. Number 1, Bell is $1 million richer. Ring the bell. Christopher Bell scores $1 million by winning last night's NASCAR All-Star Race at North Wilkesboro Speedway, beating out Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, Alex Bowman, and Chase Elliott for the victory. Boy, what a big moment this was for Christopher Bell. All weekend long, they had really good speed at that number 20 Mobil 1 Toyota. They were so strong in their heat race, the Heat Race 2, where he led all the laps despite a caution in the midpoint of that heat race. He was so dominant on those restarts, and he just had such good pace that he was going to be one of the guys that we would be talking about for the win in the All-Star event. And by golly, he showed some really good speed. Early on, he kind of fell back a couple of spots, but when we got into a little bit of a long green flag run, he picked off a few guys and was able to stay within the top 5 until we had our first caution of the race, when the 99 of Daniel Suarez blew a right front tire and hit the wall in turn 2 on the backstretch. Brought everybody to pit road. Bell was one of the many cars that elected to change 4 tires instead of going with 2 tires, which some guys did, but Bell took those 4 tires and was able to stay within the top 5 for pretty much the rest of the race. He kept having challenges with the likes of Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Kyle Larson, and Chase Elliott. I mean, he just had a very, very good race car. He wasn't really good in last year's All-Star race, but this year there was definitely a lot more speed in that race car in the number 20 to allow him to try to get his elbows out and win that $1 million. Late in the race, when we got into a little bit of a long green flag run, it looked like that the 20 car, Christopher Bell, was not going to be able to really kind of catch the leader of Logano in front of him, but then Bell started changing his lanes, moving into the bottom, and then he was closing the gap on the 22 car when NASCAR decided to throw a promoter's caution, the promoting event, North Wilkesboro, feeling like they wanted a battle for the win and wanted the fans to be entertained for the final couple laps of this race, especially with no points at stake. They threw a caution with 35 laps to go in the event, and that brought the strategy into play to figure out who's going to possibly stay out versus who will come in for either 2 tires or 4 tires. Christopher Bell and Adam Stevens elected to go with 2 tires, and they restarted in the 5th spot because the top 5 cars stayed out. But Bell was in the catbird seat because he was restarting on the bottom lane, 3rd row, and it got a really good restart getting by some of those guys that were on the older tires. He had to get his elbows out, as mentioned, got by Ryan Blaney in the 12 car, and set his sights on the 22 of Joey Logano. There were a couple of times where he would fall back, and it looked like he wasn't going to be able to close in, but then he changed his lanes once again, and I think the tires that he had on started to kick in, allowed him to chase the 22 car, and then when they went side by side in turn number 3 with about 10 laps remaining in the race, Bell got on the inside of Logano and kind of carried him, drifted him up the racetrack, moved him out of the way, not necessarily like, door slam him out of the way, just kind of carried the 22 up the track, and Bell used the momentum off of turn number 4 to take the lead. And he had to get away because Joey Logano, he doesn't like it when guys do it to him, even though he may do it to other guys, but that's how a driver is under the helmet. But Bell was able to scoot away from the 22 car, and he came across the start-finish line with the checkered flag and won $1 million. For a guy who has been very good so far this year, 8 of the first 12 races in the top 10 and 3 wins, which were 3 in a row, races 2 through 4, this 20 team, it certainly looks like that they are still one of the top dogs right now to be in this championship hunt. Again, even though it was a race for basically money, Christopher Bell certainly showed that he will be a championship threat even in a race that is all about winning money. He had great speed and just got his elbows out, and he really wanted it last night. He did such a good job, and he was so energetic in his post-race interview saying North Wilkesboro is the best short track that we have in the sport right now. And I'll talk about the racing product a little bit later on. But Christopher Bell certainly is a fan of North Wilkesboro Speedway, and he is a proponent saying that this should be a points race going forward, or we should have a points race here in the near future. And I tend to agree with him on that part. So a big congratulations to Christopher Bell, Adam Stevens, and the number 20 team on a very impressive performance in winning last night's All-Star race. Number 2, Logano left disappointed and frustrated. Joey Logano was so close to going back-to-back in the All-Star race last night. He had such a good race car, leading the most laps at 139. It almost looked like towards the end of the race that it was his race to lose until NASCAR decided to throw that promoter's caution, which, by the way, Michael Waltrip waving the yellow flag to promote that yellow, and he dropped the flag on the track. I mean, come on, man. But Joey Logano, I don't think was very pleased that they had the choice to throw the caution out, because it felt like he was going to be on his way to winning the race. But NASCAR, of course, they wanted this race, as far as it being a non-points event, to have a nice finish and an entertaining moment for the fans. Logano and Paul Wolfe elected to keep the 22 car out and stay out, along with a couple of others, while Bell and everybody else on back did come to pit road. But, you know, when Logano got a really good restart in that last restart, I felt like he possibly could scoot away from those guys that were charging on those 2 tires or 4 tires. But that was not the case, as Christopher Bell was able to close in, get alongside him for a moment, drifted back, then picked it back up, and as mentioned, with under 10 to go, he got underneath of Logano in turn 3 and carried him up the racetrack, and Bell was able to scoot away, and Logano couldn't really do much on those older tires. Now, again, I know that there were times during the race weekend and on this surface where sometimes track position mattered more than those tires, but I think under the cooler temps last night, the tires kind of at the end of the race made a little bit of difference, especially when we got into a little bit of a longer run towards the very end there. And there at the end, Joey Logano just couldn't do anything and ended up getting second. I mean, he commented about how good the car was, but he wasn't really pleased that he got carried up the track by the 20 car, and he was not pleased with Marcus Smith about them throwing that promoter's caution to bunch the whole field back up and left him kind of a sit and duck in a way. But, you know, Joey, this is a race that is for money, not for points. I get you're frustrated and everything, and I know you would have loved to have repeated your win from last year, but this is a race where we want the fans to be entertained, and we want the drivers to at least get their elbows out and get another shot at it. And that's what Christopher Bell did, and Joey wasn't able to get the job done. And also, Joey, I feel like there was going to probably be a caution even before they decided to throw the promoter's caution, because Kyle Larson, who was running in third at the time, he hit the wall, and that could have slowed the pace down, and if there was a possible problem, NASCAR may have thrown the yellow. But also, Christopher Bell was closing in on the 22 car before they threw out that promoter's flag. So I get Logano's frustrated and everything, but this is not a race for points. It's a race for money. It's about having fun. I get that he wasn't really, happy about, having fun given the outcome at the end of the race and how he was not on the good side, and instead he was runner-up. But that's how it is, but maybe it's something we look forward to look at going forward, to not maybe have our promoters yell and maybe just let them race out. But again, in All-Star race, we like to experiment with things, and that's what we experimented with last night. And Joey Logano, at the end of the day, he had a fast car, he led the most laps, but he didn't get the job done. He didn't get the $1 million. Number 3, recovery to top 3. That was the story of Ross Chastain and the one team last night. Started inside the top 10 in that Busch Light Chevrolet, had pretty good pace at the beginning and could seem to hang within the top 5, 6, 7 for the majority of the first part of the race. Then after we got that competition caution at lap 100 and restarted the race a few laps later, off of turn number 2 going down the backstretch, Chastain was on the outside 3 wide of Austin Cindric and Alex Bowman when all of a sudden Cindric kind of drifted up the track and made contact with the 1 car and turned the 1 down into the pack, collecting the 2, kind of dinging the door of the 48 car, even though he was able to carry on with no problem. Ross Chastain was pretty much put in a little bit of a hole and possibly took him out of shot of having a chance to win the All-Star race, or at least finish inside the top 5. They had to come and get those tires because when you spin, you're afraid that you flat spot those tires, and Ross Chastain did not want to take any chance, so he told his crew chief, we're going to come in, we're going to put on tires, and we got to try to make the most out of our night. He was able to get back up inside the top 10, and then when we had that promoter's yellow with 35 to go, Chastain actually decided to stay out because they did not have another set of fresh tires left in the pits versus the majority of the field. But I feel like that strategy played well into their hands because they got a good restart. They didn't get stuck in the middle of all that chaotic traffic on that final restart versus some of the other guys that were falling back on older tires versus the guys that were charging up to the front on 2 and 4 tires. And Chastain was able to hold his ground in third place and kind of at times was catching the leaders when they were racing side by side. And Logano, it was very interesting to see that one car, to see the pace that he had on those older tires remain up there and not really lose much track position. So I tip my cap to the one team and give them a round of applause that gamble to stay out benefited them to have a very good result compared to where it probably would have been if they, were deep in the pack. But once again, they didn't have really any fresh tires at the very end. So that strategy worked to their favor, and they ended up with a third place finish. So a really good job by Chastain and the one team to go from a wreck on the backstretch early on to finishing third place at the end of the night. Not a bad effort. Number 4, advancing into the All-Star race. Before the All-Star race, as usual, we have the All-Star Open, where drivers who may not have won last year's events, haven't won earlier this year, haven't been a former winner of the All-Star race or a former Cup champion. These guys had to get into the All-Star race last night by being the top 2 finishers at the end of the Open and the fan vote winner. The winner of the All-Star Open was Carson Hocevar. He was one of the drivers that was eligible for the fan vote because, as polarized as he could be, he has a pretty, good relationship with the fans and a pretty good fan base going right now. And he had really good speed in that 77 Spire car last night, running up in the top 5. They elected to take 2 tires on the competition, at lap 50. He took the lead, and he didn't look back despite one caution late when Riley Herbst hit the wall. Hocevar was able to hold the lead, did not make any enemies out there for the most part, and he was able to come away on top of the All-Star Open, advancing him into the All-Star race, where he finished 11th, which was fairly impressive. Then the runner-up was John Hunter Nemechek for Legacy Motor Club. Yes, the 42 car of Nemechek getting into the All-Star race, and for a team that's owned by Jimmy Johnson and Richard Petty, Maury Gallagher. That is very impressive. They had pretty decent pace at the beginning of the first stint, then they started to slip behind, then they took the caution, put on some tires, wasn't able to gain much, but then after that final caution where the 35 hit the wall, he actually came down to pit road to get some tires as well as a few other guys, and Nemechek charged his way from the middle of the pack up to second place and advanced in the All-Star race, which was mighty impressive and a good shot in the arm for Nemechek, who's actually been a lot more competitive, shall we say, than he was a year ago. A year ago around this time, he was really having a tough time with these Cup cars and not really being able to adjust with Legacy Motor Club. This year, on the point side, they're like 20th in the points right now. They're doing much, much better. And if they can keep this momentum going and advancing in the All-Star race like this, that's very impressive. They didn't really have a great run in the main event, finishing in the 19th spot or 18th spot. But nonetheless, to get in the All-Star race, that's a good shot in the arm, and that's progress being made by this race team. And as for the fan vote winner, for the 3rd year in a row, it is Noah Gragson that got into the All-Star race. Now, he did not have the car handling-wise and mechanically-wise to get himself into the All-Star race because he had battled power steering problems in that Open. So it looked like there was no way for him to advance in the top 2. The only hope for him to get in would be that the fans voted him in. And of course, Noah Gragson, as we all know, spent the early part of his NASCAR career driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports. Then he went to Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series, where he definitely made a name for himself, winning a lot of races and being a fan favorite, especially with his exciting celebrations post-race when he won an event. And the last 2 years, he got in the All-Star race thanks to the fans voting him and, having a pretty good fan base around him. And he was able to get into the All-Star race last night. And they worked out the bugs of that power steering problem because once they were able to get into that All-Star race, they had a lot better pace than the Open did. They weren't able to really get up there in the top 10 with the other guys, but they hung around the top 15, and that's where they finished at the end of the night. So, job well done by Noah Gragson and the 4 team in Front Row Motorsports event. So, good nights in general to advance in the All-Star race by Hocevar, Nemechek, and Noah Gragson. And number 5, the racing at North Wilkesboro. By golly, that was a lot of fun, folks. Ever since we came back to North Wilkesboro in 2023, we returned to the track where we were so excited to come back to a racetrack that had been very popular with many fans from the 60s all the way to the 90s until we left that track in 96. And when we came back, everybody was so excited and hyped up. But we didn't get a really good all-star race, particularly because of the older surface. So last year, we came back to North Wilkesboro for the all-star race the second time with a brand new surface as we repainted and had the option of putting on the medium tires or the softer red letter Goodyear tires. Was it better than the first all-star race in North Wilkesboro? Yes. But was it the best? Not really. I mean, we only had 2 leaders. Joey Logano, who led all but 1 lap. The only other lap that was led that night, Brad Keselowski. Last night, however, and even counting the Open in general, awesome performance by the competitors out there. There was a lot of side-by-side action. Now, Goodyear also came with a softer tire that everybody used. It wasn't like an option tire or anything. Everybody was on the same equal tire for this weekend. That was a softer option, and I think it definitely benefited. And the track also, if you notice, is getting a little bit grayer. Now that we've had a little bit of age under this track since the repave last year, it's going to help going forward. Kevin Harvick said so during the broadcast. As this track continues to age and age and age, and we bring the right tire compound, we're going to see better racing going forward. And last night's All-Star race, if that was an indicator that we have the future still here in North Wilkesboro, it was awesome. A lot of side-by-side action. We had 18 lead changes. Who would have heard that statistic for an all-star race? 18 lead changes. That was impressive. The side-by-side battles, like the first part of the race when Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski were side-by-side for like 20 to 25 laps in a row, that was so much fun. And the comers and goers that we had from the back and the guys charging into the front, the 2-tire, 4-tire gamble early on, and that promoter's caution at the very end that threw a wrench into the whole thing, it was so much fun to watch these guys go at it. And even when we got into some longer runs, there were guys that would spread out a little bit. Instead of trying to run the middle of the bottom groove, guys would experiment up towards the wall if they could, as long as they didn't hit it. Kyle Larson was one of the guys that, of course, was trying that, and he would climb his way up from the rear of the field because he was busy in Indianapolis qualifying for the 500, which he successfully did. But he was able to work his way from 23rd up into the top 5 and took a 2-tire gamble after one of those cautions and put himself in position. But unfortunately, he did hit the wall right before the promoter's caution happened, and it broke the toe link, and he finished 21st. But the racing in general and the charge at the end, the battle between Bell and Logano, had me on the edge of my seat, and it was a lot of fun. Again, the character of this track continues to age, the better the racing will get, which begs the big question. Should NASCAR have a points race at North Wilkesboro going forward? Here's my answer. One-word answer. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. This track, as mentioned, with age and the right tire compound, we could put 36 to 40 cars on this track, if there's enough room for 40 cars, of course. We can have an event that everybody would love. We'd probably get a day race, but I don't think anybody would mind that. This track, it just continues to get better, and the product that we saw last night, I tip my cap for NASCAR for bringing the right tire compound. North Wilkesboro, continuing to have their races with the, modifieds and all the other short model cars. This racing we had last night was absolutely fun. Absolutely awesome. Was it the best All-Star race of all time? No. But has it been one of the better All-Star races we've had in the last couple of years? You better believe it. I mean, that side-by-side action with the 22 and the 6, the battles that Logano had with other guys, Larson and Bell, and then Bell charging in the end with those 2 tires versus the older tires Logano had, that was a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the show that these guys put on at North Wilkesboro. And I hope next year, if we still have the All-Star race here, which I'm pretty sure we will, I hope that we will definitely consider going forward a points race here at North Wilkesboro. Doesn't have to be 2. It could be just 1 point race. If we can have that, that would be absolutely, totally awesome. And I don't think the fans would have a problem with that, especially all those fans that have been going to North Wilkesboro for many, many years that have waited and waited and waited for NASCAR to come back if they ever could, and they did. And I also want to thank everybody that put this thing together, Marcus Smith. And, of course, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was one of the many people that was a big part of bringing North Wilkesboro back to NASCAR. And this track is definitely a lot of fun, and I hope we have a points race going forward. Now, last night was also the final broadcast of the season for NASCAR on Fox when it comes to the Cup Series. Now, I know a lot of you are probably like, thank goodness we don't have to deal with Fox anymore. We don't have to deal with their, camera problems or, graphics and too many commercials. Well, I want to thank NASCAR on Fox for the contribution they made for the first 12 races of the season, as well as the non-points events, the Clash, and the All-Star race. I mean, Mike Joy, Kevin Harvick, Clint Boyer, Larry McReynolds, Chris Myers, Jamie McMurray, Jamie Little, Josh Sims, Regan Smith, Larry Mack, everybody, they put all their effort into these broadcasts, the best they possibly can, to bring this entertainment to us at home, and I thank them so much for all the fun that they've brought to every NASCAR fan this year. And again, I know a lot of people are probably glad that the broadcast part of Fox is gone. I don't think they really have a problem with the personalities. It's just more of the, broadcast has been kind of a little bit edgy at times. But still, Fox does their best, especially with the people in front of the camera, behind the camera, audio, everything. They do their best to try to put on a good product for us. So NASCAR on Fox, want to thank them for being a part of the Cup Series this year and celebrating their 25th season in NASCAR. Now, of course, they still will have the truck coverage for the rest of the season. But now, it is time for a new broadcast team to enter the fold, and it is Prime Video starting this upcoming weekend. We're going to have Adam Alexander, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Steve Letarte calling the next 5 races on Prime Video with Daniel Trotta, Corey LaJoie, and NASCAR Hall of Famer Carl Edwards for pre- and post-race shows. And on pit road, Marty Snyder, Kim Kuhn, and former Daytona 500 winner Trevor Bayne will be part of the Prime broadcast team. And I think that they knocked it out of the park with this group of talent that they put together for Prime Video. And I'm super excited and can't wait to see how they will do for these next 5 weeks. So with that being said, this upcoming weekend is one of the best race weekends of the year for a race fan, because it is Memorial Day weekend, and that means on Sunday, the biggest day in racing, the Monaco Grand Prix in the morning, the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500 on Fox for the first time ever on Sunday afternoon, and then Sunday night, NASCAR on Prime Video has its first broadcast with one of the crown jewels of NASCAR, the Coca-Cola 600. 600 miles, 400 laps of grueling, tense racing, survival, determination, and a lot of competition is going to be one of the big storylines this upcoming Sunday night at the race. And I'm super excited myself as a race fan, because this weekend is like Christmas for a race car fan. You get the 3 biggest races in all of motorsports together on the same day. And this is going to be the last time, because next year the Monaco Grand Prix will be on a different date. So NASCAR fans, enjoy perhaps the last Monaco Indy Coke 600 day for quite a while, because who knows if Monaco will ever return to being on the Sunday of the Indy 500 and the 600 in the near future. But I'm super excited for this weekend as a race fan for those 3 events, but also in general, because I will be attending the Coca-Cola 600 this upcoming Sunday, the 3rd year in a row, and hopefully this time, not only will we have some great racing, hopefully, but let's have a full 600-mile event on Sunday night. No rain, please, please, please. That's all I ask. Mother Nature, stay away. And also, we also want this race to happen, as well as the Indy 500 on the same day, because Kyle Larson is doing the double. Second go around, let's hope he can complete all 1,100 miles. Complete all 500 miles in Indy, and then zoom his way over to Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600 and see if he can get the victory. He tried to do the double last year, but of course the weather moving in from the western part of the United States halted the start of this Indy 500, and he committed to that race. He stayed for it, and then he flew back to Charlotte, even though the 600 already got underway. He landed just as the rain started to hit. NASCAR said the effort for him to come back to the track gave him the waiver he needed to still remain playoff eligible. But let's hope this time, so far, it looks like the weather's going to be good for all the events. So let us hope for some really good racing, and we wish Kyle Larson all the best in the double. And also, I'm excited because Friday night, I'm going to be attending the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race at Charlotte Motor Speedway with the North Carolina Education Lottery 200. I'm super excited. I'm going to be putting together a vlog for that race and to show my experience of the entire event. I'm going to have some fun and watch these guys get their elbows out on a Friday night, and I cannot wait for it. So I hope you all will have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Who do you think will come out on top in the top races of the year this upcoming Sunday? Who will win at Monaco? Who's going to win the greatest spectacle in racing? And who's going to add a crown jewel to their name for the Coke 600? Will it be Ryan Blaney doing it again? Will it be Tyler Reddick? Could Chase Daly get redemption for the one that got away from him 5 years ago? Or will somebody else have the chance to win the biggest race, the longest race of the year? We shall see what happens. But I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and you guys have a great start to your Memorial Day weekend. So subscribe, like, and congrats once again to Christopher Bell and the 20 team on their impressive win in the All-Star race last night. Have a great week, everybody. Let's go racing!